Yo, what's up? Craig Coffey here. We're talking about how to have a conversation. When you stutter, this is one of the things that is the hardest thing you ever do. Hi. See, but sometimes you can learn how to just say hey, but we're talking about conversation, how to engage with someone, how to stand there and feel confident, what to say. All of these things that no one teaches us. I never learned this from a speech expert. I never learned this from friends. No one taught me how to have a conversation. I learned it for 10 years of getting out there, doing it, practicing, and I'm gonna give it all to you right now. I'm gonna share it. First, we're gonna do a little walk and talk through a cool used bookstore. It's small, but it should allow us to walk by people, talk about stuttering, maybe even strike up random conversations. But guess what? I ain't pre-planning shit. Neither should you, right? All right, let's be real. Let's face the facts. Conversation scares the shit out of us, but why? One, because we want to control the environment. When you stutter like you do, and I did, we want to control it to where we're always thinking, what are they gonna say? What can I say next? What am I gonna have to say? What words can I not say? What do I have to avoid, right? So all of that is critically important. It's cold, so we're gonna grab a coffee while we talk. Hey, man. Hey. So this idea that you and I, that you haven't had a lot of practice, so I'm gonna shortcut it and maybe try something right now. Hi, it's so cold outside, man. It's freezing, yeah. But this whole idea about conversation makes us nervous. It should make you nervous because you haven't done it. And really, no matter what I do for the first time or when I learn something, I am nervous. The first major call out is feel nervous, that's fine. But you still have to do it, right? So you still have to practice speaking, practice being in a convo. Look how easygoing she is, right? She'll eat it with a spoon or a fork. Meanwhile, I am cold just trying to get a cup of coffee. See, that was a real gentle way how to join a conversation. I chose to not stay in there, but what you saw was me seeing what was happening in real time and saying something to join that. Conversation starters, Craig. Well, how do I start a conversation? What you saw and what I show you a lot of is how to comment in real time about what we see. Those are the best. The less I pre-plan, which I don't ever pre-plan, but the less you pre-plan things, the smoother your speech will be. But there's a fear factor that we gotta discuss, and this is real, and that is, it takes courage or balls or guts to stand in there and not pre-plan your shit when you stutter. Not pre-plan it, because you gotta trust that you'll be able to find the words spontaneously. Let me tell you, I wish I learned this years ago before I figured it out, because that spontaneous speech, that's where the gold is. The spontaneous talking, that's where the flow is. What you hear from me is it's all freestyle. Do I have ideas of what I'm gonna talk about? Yes. Do I write a few things down? Yeah, but a few words. I don't write this whole script down, right? There ain't no script. I mean, like I said, right? I'm smart enough, but I'm no genius. So the point about that is so critical that you don't need a conversation starter. You can find it in the moment. That's always the best way. But you have to take a leap of faith, because when you're playing in this world of unscripted speech in the real world, right? It can make you nervous because you can't control it. So that control factor is something that I learned to let go slowly. And you're gonna need to face the choice to let that go as well and just ride with the flow, ride with conversation. Because when you stutter like you do, and like I stuttered for so long, it takes a lot to break away from all of this mind pattern and what you're normally thinking and doing. But this is one of the ways. Hey, how's it going, man?
How are you?
Good. Just gotta say, you got really cool hair.
Thank you.
Like, so I don't ever say that about guys, but can I just get a small coffee? And I guess a small coffee. I was gonna get a cookie, but no. So thanks.
All right. It's gonna be 175.
Yes, sir.
You want to do a medium roast or a dark roast?
Which the barista's choice. So I always feel like you guys know it better than me anyway. So there you go. So when we talk about, hey, so since we're here, can I just, and you can, the rest is a tip. So I have a question for you. I'm talking about stuttering because I grew up stuttering and then I found a cool way how to not stutter anymore. But do you ever find people here who like struggle to speak? Because that used to be me a long time ago. So, yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people.
And so is that, does that make you feel a certain way? You seem like a nice guy, but does that make you feel any way?
I try to be understanding and try to help them out,
That's so awesome.
lead them in the right direction that they
Yeah.
want to.
Thanks. And do you encounter that when do you ever ask for someone's, like, do you ever ask for like their first name or anything, and do you see them struggle on that? Okay.
No.
Cool.
I treat them like any.
You're so nice, man. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So really interesting because I know that some of you like to hear me talk about stuttering, so I did it, engage this guy. But let's go back on the topic of, in order to speak smoothly and speak without pre-planning, there's a bit of trusting ourselves. It's like taking a jump and believing you will catch yourself. It's this sense of, thank you very much. It's a sense of, I'm not going to control what I'm going to say, but I'm going to trust it's going to work out. I got to be straight, right? And say, I failed a lot of times. So there's a ton of times when I was practicing this, when I would learn this, where I would be in spontaneous talks or not pre-planning, and then someone would say something and I wasn't quick enough or I blocked. So there is a lot of practicing to figure out how this works for you. But in my opinion, this is one of the most sustainable ways of how to kill your stutter and how to talk without pre-scripting your words, because that is so important. It's all of the pre-scripting stuff really gets into the head that can make it tough. So let me also talk about, I've had a lot of people say, okay, so getting into a conversation for people is the hardest. It seems like once people are in a convo, things go okay, which is great, but how to get into it. And it's all about that spontaneous speech. It's about finding what looks, what you have in common or what you see in that exact moment. The less you pre-plan and script, the better it is. It's funny how the world works. So I'm going to share a big trick too, which is it doesn't really matter what is said to start the conversation. And I should know, I've started thousands of conversations with thousands of strangers. It doesn't fucking matter. Because once you're in a conversation, no one remembers how you started it, right? No one remembers what you asked them. But that's a good call out, Craig. And that is, always start it with a comment or a question. I never talk about me. I always comment about what I see and what's going on and what we have in common or something that just happened. So you'll see a lot of, and I've recorded quite a few of these, where it's a spontaneous spark. A spontaneous spark starts that conversation. And this is a learned skill. A second big topic that people say is, well, Craig, once I'm in a conversation, or let's say I start it, okay? Then what I always hear is they feel so nervous. It's very, very common is how nervous people feel. Now, why? Because you don't know what to do, because you're standing there and you're accustomed to trying to control it and pre-think and pre-plan, and you're not even really hearing the person talk. At least For me, I was barely being present, which means I wasn't really thinking about what they're saying and just enjoying the convo. I was always figuring out what's next or what am I going to have to say next. There's this leap of faith that you got to take, that to believe the idea that you can talk without prescripting, that you can be in a conversation without trying to control every word you say. It's learning to let go, which sounds probably crazy coming from where we are and where you are now, but that's the magic. It's a magic of letting go of the control. It's a magic of saying, you know what, I'm not going to pre-plan. I'm going to be there and I'm going to learn how to spontaneously speak. So when you're standing in the conversation, the reason why you feel nervous is because you're trying to control it, because you're trying to make it go a certain way. And in the real world, like where I record all of my content, there's nothing to control because it's all unpredictable. That's the magic. But you can ride this wave of being present, this wave of not planning. It's scary, but that's where the real special work happens. Let me give you an example. Of all the conversations you've seen me start on camera, right? They're never pre-scripted. And the magic happens when I start it and then they talk and then who knows what comes from it. Sometimes it's short and we walk away, or like what I saw or what you saw me do downstairs was I said something to a person, but it didn't start a conversation, which was fine and not really one that I wanted to start, but there's this magic of trying. And when you engage enough people, people will respond back. And once they respond back, you're in conversation. So you spontaneously spark it up with something that you see or observe. You never pre-script. And I don't start a conversation by introducing myself. I don't ever do that. It's not that I don't want to introduce myself at the start. It's just that that shit never worked for me and I tried it all. So it's much more smooth, much more, you can come across as being more trusting, more normal sounding in the real world by just commenting on what just happened. Oh my gosh. Or, hey, there's so many opportunities and I record it all. So make sure that you watch for that. But it's that spontaneous spark. And then when they talk back or when they say something back, then you can learn and practice these unscripted, true conversations. And the nervousness comes from you trying to control it as well as you not having enough practice. It's going to take a while because you have to unfuck your mind for how you've been treating these kind of things for a lot of years. So it's okay. So we've talked about don't think what to say next and be present. We've talked about how to let go and be and not to control it all. And we have discussed how you're going to learn how to trust yourself and speak without planning, speak spontaneously. Let me also talk about that what you're doing now, all of the pre-planning, all of the pre-scripting, all of the fear, that shit isn't working for you now. So for me, it didn't work for me too, so I dropped it. Because what's not working can't help us. So we gotta change that. And it'll take time to undo the years of bad practice habits that you've been doing. It does take time. So make sure that you're not too hard on yourself, okay? Because it's all practice. And that's how I see it now. I'm gonna wrap in just a moment and go enjoy my hot coffee. The last thing I wanna say is some people say, hey Craig, what about not starting a conversation on my own? But there's times when my friends will be talking or I'll be at work and I want to jump in and I feel this block about to happen and I don't start. The thing about that, and I'm gonna go a little bit off the topic, but this is important. Those kind of things are from the gut feel. Those kind of things where you feel like maybe I shouldn't do this or the bad feeling, it's because you're stuttering and you're not understanding the gut feeling. And I recorded some content that discusses that. But that feeling of, I feel a block coming, the way I treat it is you're trying to force out something and make it fit. Where you've pre-thought something and you're trying to fit it in. But it goes totally against what I'm talking about, spontaneous speaking, and I wanted to acknowledge that. So there's a way how to enter a conversation that is already going on by joining, by being spontaneous. There's this whole thing that when you control it and when you stutter and when you're trying to fit in like pre-scripted stuff, it's always going to feel forced. It's always going to feel that way. And of course, like I say, do not push through a block, because when you do, your speech will be fucked for the rest of the day. And if that's your case, to try to join this conversation by forcing your way in or by pushing through a block, it's never going to work. I'm going to record more on this about how to have a conversation, how to be in a convo, how to start one. I think this was a fabulous way how to start part one. I'm your boy, Craig Coffee, and I'm out. Bye.